Oh, it's live now?
Now we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Daily Diaspora. And we get to do it 2 times. Turn
For
up.
real.
Welcome. What's going on with the diaspora, Ashley? Let them know.
Oh man. We got so many topics to cover. Um, One in particular, we really need to hone in on, which is the third reconstruction. But we got a plethora of topics.
Hmm?
So people just need to come on in and get these little seeds of knowledge so they can go ahead and research and grow those seeds into wealthy mindsets.
Plant that mustard seed, build the treasures and the wealth of your mind, and seek refuge in these terrible times. I'm pulling up our stream right now. There we go. We're looking really good. I don't like that daily diaspora heavy head, though. I'm about to take that out of there. But I'm about to post this stream. I want to give a shout out to the real and true allies before we get into our first topic. The heaven gates have opened. I want to give a shout out to the real allies, and of course, rest in peace to John Lewis, who passed away.
Yes.
He left a legacy for us, and y'all know why we're here to continue to fight.
Yes.
So let me know about these flights that we about to catch on. First topic of the day, y'all. Buckle your
Yes.
seatbelts. Change your
Man,
life.
Africa's about to be wide open, y'all. It's I think they're planning or slating for flights to open in August. Um Barring any um situations with COVID, it should be geared to go for a reopening of international flights. So I know that some diasporans are already starting to make that move, already getting prepared. If
Diasporans.
that's if that's the direction you're going in, hey, you heard it here.
Should we, as the diasporans and black people, people of color all around the world, at least be trying to get there ASAP, just to go see the land in the time of COVID?
Um, well, that's tricky. I mean,
Because I want to
people are,
go.
yeah. I mean, people are flying domestically right now all the time. So um, I don't see much of a difference between that and flying international. Um, the COVID situation is not what it is here. Does not seem to be at the same level and completely uncontrolled like it is here. So, um, I mean, people are really walking around Africa like nothing's really going on.
Yeah,
So,
and I don't think there's going to be no forced vaccinations over there either.
yeah. And I know like some of the presidents in different countries, they're doing what they need to do. Um, so,
Ladies and gentlemen, our message here on the diaspora is clearly we need to get back to where we all came from. So, of course, we'd be remiss if we did not open up the show explaining to everybody that whether it's today, this year, next year, 5 years from now, you
mhm,
and your family need to start planning on the great exodus.
yes, because it is coming. And um, I know that we're going to be scouting out over the next few years um, different countries. So if you're not ready for the move, but you're thinking about it and you have some questions, just go and visit. Um, didn't we have one in particular? I don't know if we addressed this last time, but something I wanted to say in particular is that with the Gambia, I think last time I told you about the 5 year visa and then you could get citizenship. Well, right now they're working on automatic citizenship for diasporans.
So,
So,
ladies and gentlemen of the diaspora that listen, can I give a quick interesting topic? Because you just said our visas are opening up, we have that access. I won't get too specific, but I'm talking to members of my family. And I say, hey, I'm about to go get my visa and get my citizenship over there in Africa. And black people, are y'all with us or not? Because my answer was not a I'm with you answer. And wake
I,
up, America.
I didn't get the same. I didn't get the same feedback either when I
Imagine
talked to my
that.
family about it. They just are like, they kind of laughed and just was like, okay, just.
So, the reason why we are always on returning the Exodus, getting back to the Africa for the people of diaspora, because we are about to talk about the topic that we are here to talk about. And I know starting off the show, if y'all may be watching, I feel jittery because it's the only thing we talk about. It's the only thing we've been focused on. And it's the only thing we really here to let y'all know about is teaching on the 3 phases of Reconstruction. And before I pass this over to you, I just what we say is so important that we talk about and understand the power behind the reconstructions, because we have to understand what they're rooted in.
Mm-hmm.
And they're rooted in a process that we've tried over and over and over. A
Yeah.
fusion of moral politics, us coming together, this equality thing that
Mm-hmm.
we always talk about. And this reconstruction that we're talking about, the solutions, the possibilities that we could do, is exactly the mechanism that we need to bring that hope. But we know what the root of America is built in. And we will
Mm-hmm.
never reach that level of socio, political, and economical trajectory that we were meant to be. The things that
Mm-hmm.
are written in the Constitution.
Exactly.
Are we gonna get
We
there?
have to always. Why do we always have to make legislation, change laws, in order for them to be able to for them to comply, get them to comply with the Constitution? It makes no sense. It's over and over and over again. We have to pass laws that are already written in the Constitution, already in the Bill of Rights. We're the only people that has to do that.
Black leader after black leader, diasporan after diasporan, slave trade victim after slave trade victim has completely been putting up the fight. When are we going to actually do what this country was founded on? And here we are, 400 years later.
Back at it again.
Let's break down these reconstructions. We got
Yeah.
3 different ones. Where are we starting at? Professor Ashley.
We're going to start with the first Reconstruction, which started right after um, slavery was abolished and the 13th Amendment was passed. The first Reconstruction lasted 12 years. And it was a brief time period where African Americans flourished. Some flourished. We had um, people take office. They were allowed to vote. Um, their rights weren't really being infringed on quite yet. We had some people that got caught up in the sharecropping hustle, but we saw a lot of migration where people could go and seek other opportunities. They could also, that's when we had the founding of Black Wall Street, so on and so forth. And just like with every other time, we um, they give us an inch and then they take us right back a mile. And So this period brought about because of this, especially once Abraham Lincoln was assassinated and his vice president was Andrew Johnson. He came in. He because he had a particular leniency towards this whole states' rights thing. And states' rights is really just a dog whistle for states to really kind of do what they want to do even if it contradicts the Constitution. And so that brought about um, Jim Crow. This particular president, he tried to enact um, black codes, and he tried to veto all type. I believe, he tried to veto the 14th Amendment, which actually gave African Americans um, citizenship and rights and the right to be protected under the law. Um, so yeah, and but the thing is Jim Crow was not the only contradiction. But before we get into that, I want you to expound a little bit more on that first Reconstruction, if you have
So
any things.
absolutely, so much, so much, so many years of what are we going to call it? So many years of just oppression that we've been through. But you've talked about years of bliss that we actually had, that
Mm-hmm.
actually was working, that actually was going to change America. Two things that I want to talk about from that period. Now, I might be jumping my head myself. What I want to talk about is the time period of peace. And I
Mm-hmm.
hate to do it already, but I want to bring the Bible back into
Mm-hmm.
the diaspora because it's a document of history that we have to look at.
Yes.
And at the end time, where the prophecy is, it talks about a time period of peace and prosperity within God's people where they were not under the constant oppression that we are under today. And
Mm-hmm.
from that time period, have we had any piece of oppression, any off of our, like hearing the stories about Black Wall Street is impeccable. It's like, wow, we
Mm-hmm.
were about to do something major. And to live in that time period is we don't have anything close to it now. So it's just a distant memory of bliss that we had. And my point is,
Mm-hmm.
could that be true? Could that be the time period where we talk about where the last time where we had peace and the only time we've had sign of peace, and we're never going to get that again? The first Reconstruction. Are we going to get that in the third?
I,
We
I
got
try to
we gonna
remain
get
positive.
we gonna get to the third.
We're
So
gonna
what
get to it, but yeah,
we
that's
gonna
a
have?
question for
We gonna have.
the people to ponder on.
Leave a comment, share, subscribe. Help us share this message, y'all. So first construction ends.
Yes.
My biggest thing, like I said, is oppression, the affliction, and the constant pain that has been put on the people of West Africa, the people of the Portuguese. What was it called that happened in Portugal when they put all of this together?
Spanish
Thank,
Inquisition.
thank you.
That's
We
when race was created, but
we
it was
are
about religion. But we'll touch on that another time.
we are trying to get the people to understand how, especially our people who have not woken up, our white listeners, anybody who may not even understand what the diaspora is that nothing has changed. And a lot of people don't understand why black people are upset and in a fury today. I mean, a lot of white people, privileged people, will say, shouldn't they be grateful? So I want to talk about some things that went on after the first Reconstruction.
The backlash.
My first thing I want to talk about, sharecropping.
hmm
Do y'all understand what sharecropping was? I'm sitting here learning about sharecropping, and I'm like, wow, I'm sitting here complaining about minimum wage. We all complain about minimum wage and how
hmm
you pretty much ain't gonna do nothing or change your life at all if all you are doing is making minimum wage. But we know even in today, there's ways out of minimum wage. There's ways to change your life. There's things you can do. Although that's a broken system, we're trying to work on legislation to get that minimum wage is raising across the country. But
hmm
sharecropping was like minimum wage times 1,000 where we free the slaves. They have nothing to do. They have no way to succeed, survive, do anything with themselves. And the only thing that will help them survive is the things that they manufacture and help derive power from: cotton, working the farms.
Yeah, they went right back to the plantation that they just got off of.
But they were
They
free,
never.
but they were getting funds, but they had places to live. No, it was
Nope.
systematically set up to where they would never, never,
Never.
never build up any savings, never build up any wealth, never be able to leave the farm. Never. They were basically able to live off of what they picked and eat their scraps.
Survive.
If you can't save, that means you can't save food, you can't save money, you can't save or build up anything. And if we know that this system was set up for where you cannot build or save or anything, it sounds to me like you're basically making enough to live off to eat.
Yeah.
Is that kind of like being in debt in 21st century? I don't know. We don't want to talk about the systematic stuff.
And it reminds me of something MLK said. He said it's a crude jest to say to a bootless man to lift yourself up by your bootstraps. Black man didn't have bootstraps or didn't have boots. So how is he supposed to lift himself up by his bootstraps? And by some way, because we are a creative people, we were able in some small pockets throughout the country, not just Black Wall Street. We also had Roseville and some others that are unnamed that I don't know of at this time. But we're able to build communities and wealth for themselves and their people. So they went out and figured out some kind of way to get themselves some boots so that they could lift themselves up by their bootstraps. And then we get backlash. Can you tell me about the different type of backlash
that we are getting today?
That we got during that our ancestors got during or after Reconstruction.
Well, let's share the story of one of my favorite activists, one of my favorite leaders, who also happens to be a female, who also has to be deeply immersed in the business that we are trying to do, which is public message. The voice of the prophet, Ida B. Wells, was one of the main people. If you don't know about Ida B. Wells after everything we've been through, then that should let you know that your awokenness, where you've come in your knowledge, you got to step it up, because this is one of the hidden lights of our movement, Black Wall Street, and everything that she did, because she witnessed every single thing around her die. Her best friends died. She was godparents to people that were killed, black men hung, all of this stuff because they were trying to flourish in the Reconstruction, the first Reconstruction, this legislation that we put together.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? The tyranny never stopped. KKK continued their run rampant, burned down everything, and completely set us back and said, guess what? Although we put all this legislation into existence, we didn't mean it. And guess what Ida had to do, Ashley? They left. Guess what we opened this show talking about doing? But they probably going to give us the same backlash.
Mm-hmm. Whole lot of people
wrote about it here. About the construction too. So backlash. Hey, shout out Nick Cannon. Talk about backlash. I stand with Nick, y'all. Just like I stand with Kat. So I got another point that I want to make. I don't know what else you got on the first Reconstruction.
No, you to take us, usher us in so I can.
So when you seeking knowledge, ladies and gentlemen, this is God's knowledge. This is the hidden history of the lineage of what God has done in the earth. Some may know him as Allah, Jesus, whatever you may call it, that one God that Abraham started all of this with. This is that history. And when you are seeking this knowledge, he ain't going to keep it from you. So that was a long point to get to. I watched Life the other day, Martin Lawrence and Eddie Murphy. And it is a movie about
Chain Gang.
America. And all they did was come across a dead body a black body at that, and they got sentenced to life for that murder. And from there, you watch a movie. If you're looking beyond everything that's going on in the movie, all the comedy, whatever, whatever, black people laboring from the start to the end of the movie, no matter what you in, the black people are being that free labor. And I'm like, wow, ain't that something? Ain't that just what we complain about with prison is? Ain't that what we complain about every single thing going on? And guess what, Ashley? I found out less than a day later that it actually was a system that was set up called convict leasing. Convict leasing. Would you believe the same way we do in the prison systems is the same system we had 100 years ago? But yet, we should be grateful and change has happened. I cannot count the number of black men and women of the diaspora who have lost their lives due to the prison system. And they get out of prison, they only serve a 3 or 5, etc., etc., etc. Your life's changed and it's never going back. You are officially broken by the system.
You are part of the system. And you know how that was made possible, right?
Teach us.
Through the loophole in the 13th Amendment. Slavery was technically never really abolished. They saw that because this country was founded on free labor, it thrived on free labor. All of a majority of this country's economic wealth came from slavery, from free labor. They needed a loophole to be able to continue having free labor. And so black people didn't have to really do anything to get locked up, chain gangs, and leased out to companies, a lot of companies that were built from the economic wealth of slavery.
We don't even got time to talk about lynch law.
State sanctioned, government sanctioned murder. But most people should know about that. So did you have anything else on
Nope.
this topic before I take us in?
Nope. We're about to go in. I would just say that we are here to just educate and let you know that there's more that you need to look into. And I want every single citizen of America and the world to understand that the pipeline of prison to profit has been something that we've always institutionalized from free labor from slaves. And I will not stop capping for all of the black men who are locked up from 3 strikes, no matter what you were doing, whether you were selling marijuana, probation, riding a motorcycle, shout out Meek Mill, whatever you doing, they getting us, having us. I want to share a story real quick, Ashley, about this African-American male who did like 10, 15 years of service in the military, got out on medical marijuana, was driving. This is last week. Driving, where was he at? North Carolina or South Carolina. Got pulled over because he was out at the gas station dancing. He's with his wife and his kids. This man gets arrested. Cops come up and just do their normal routine because they see somebody dancing. Come to find out, his man has medical marijuana in his car. And never mind, he was in Alabama. He had medical marijuana. He was coming from Arizona. He had his card and everything. Alabama police officers, we don't allow that over here. Man got 3 to 5. Veteran. Wasn't smoking it. It was just in the car, in the back, in the trunk. In the trunk! And Farrakhan talked about it on July 4th. Y'all better go listen to the message. I'm really delaying going into second construction. But I gotta say this, y'all. He talked about looking at the lies that our government, our legislative office, and our judges, no matter what, is just okay with the lies that they put in the system about the cases and how things break down with us.
Yeah.
Just blatantly lie.
Yeah.
Like, nothing's wrong with that. Take us into second construction.
Oh, it's something very much wrong with it. Done purposely, though. But people don't want to admit that or want to see that. But we're gonna get there though. We're gonna get there through all this purposefully done um, government legislations and policies. So now we're moving into the 1900s. Much of what we've already discussed continued to go on well up until civil rights. But something that is consistently looked over is we so let's go back to early 1900s. The car, when did the car come out? I think like 1912 or something like that. I'm just going off the top of my
Shout
head.
out Ford.
Ford. But you know, most people couldn't afford a car or anything like that. So not your middle class. And then we had the 1920s. Everything's popping. Well, metropolitan areas were pretty much integrated because um, all the businesses and industries were in the city, and people had to be able to get to work. Black, white, doesn't matter what your race was. You had to get to work, and so um, the areas were integrated. And then we had the Great Depression. Um, and so we had a lot of people out of work, in poverty. And so Franklin Roosevelt, he established the New Deal. Um,
New Deal.
now, now we learned this in schools, oh, the New Deal. Um, and FDR did all these great things for the American people. But did that really include all American people? Did it really? So we're going to look into that.
Absolutely. Land
We're
of
going
the
to look at,
free, home of the brave.
we'll see. So um, during this time period, a lot of people needed housing. So um,
Mm.
that's when he developed public housing. And public housing um, was not for really the poor. Exactly, it was for people that still had work, but they made a decent living, but just wasn't any housing available. Nobody was really building at this time, but people still needed housing, and so the most economic way to go about it is to build public housing, small areas, high rises, what have you, where you can put a bunch of people within a certain vicinity. And again, back to what I was saying, people still have to be able to get to work, so you can't start building and spreading things out. People need to stay relatively in a close vicinity. And the reason why it was integrated is because, and I'm going back to the integration, because there were certain jobs that only Black people could do. One example was like the Pullman porter at the train station and stuff. That was a job specific to Black people. That's just one example. Um, so anyways, when he builds these public housing, this was specifically for white people, the white working class. Built this public housing. Like I said, I got to reiterate that it was not for the poor. So when they had high standards, you had to be married.
Mm.
Don't sound familiar, does it?
Sounds very familiar.
So you had to be married, um, and you had to be well dressed. Your home had to be kept up. Your children had to be well mannered. They just didn't want anybody coming in and tearing up government housing. So they they built all these public housing. As a matter of fact, they demolished a lot of integrated communities to build these public housings. So when they demolished these integrated neighborhoods, A lot of them included um, Black people's houses, and they could not then just go and get a place at the public housing because it was for white people. Now, mind you, I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna reiterate that this was federally funded, so federally sanctioned, segregated public housing. And Black people had to go and find, you know, housing somewhere else or go double up with family members or something. But yeah, completely demolished these areas under eminent domain. So then we had a situation jump off World War II, right? And so World War II brought about a second migration where people were um, migrating to these what is it called, these the the industries, the defense production places. So they were all over the country, um, and so people started migrating from the South for job opportunities. White and Black. White people came first, and so you have these people migrating. So again, under the 1949 Housing Act, which falls under the New Deal, this is Truman coming in, or Truman was in office at this point, and so they built more public housing. People were coming so fast, you know, they 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 were just like, continuously building these public housing. And then Black people started coming in, and well, they didn't integrate these. They built some for Black people. They but oftentimes they were used with um, not as good construction material. They were in undesirable places next to railroad tracks, and because their whole sentiment was that they did not intend for Black people to stay in these areas. These areas, as a matter of fact, in certain areas, they announced that after the war efforts and the war was over, um, you are not supposed to stay here. Um, so what was something else I wanted to say? Um so you have this all this going on. People are migrating, they're moving into the cities. Um then the war ends, and um oh, something I missed something. So during this time, this is just a small ad lib, but during this time, um the only construction that was going on for housing was for workers. It was prohibited to use construction material for housing for anything other than for like people working in these defense production centers, um, because all the material really needs to go towards the war. And so then we come out of the war, and now you have returning veterans, and they're coming back. They need housing. A lot of them are starting families, and um, and this is the baby boom generation. So this is like 1950s, right? You got the baby boom generation,
Hmm.
um, and they
What I
need
would like to
housing.
say is this. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, so yeah, so all these people now need housing. The war's over. Okay, so what they started doing was they established the Federal Housing, I think, Administration. And so what, because people really didn't have like money at this time, like developers like we do now, where they just have like the capital to be able to go out and like buy the land and like build houses. So what they did was um, these developers got federally funded to develop suburbs so they could house these people, all these people. But what they did is first they started propagating, like using propaganda to um, entice white people to move out to the suburbs. Um, so they used to run ads and show pictures on, like, because I don't think it was like TV or anything like at that time. I'm not sure exactly, but I know they had like posters, and the poster would say, um, "Flee crime" or "Come to the suburbs,"
Mm-hmm.
something like that. "Escape crime, move to the suburbs," and they would have a picture of a black person in handcuffs, like the police taking them in handcuffs, and so really started putting fear in people. And it's like, okay, these people have lived together all this time. Now all of a sudden, you guys are propagating that you need to flee from the cities to get away from black people because of crime. And so through that, they got, through psychological, what propaganda does it, through psychological efforts, they got white people to start going out into the suburbs. Um, and then what they did, because the Federal Housing Administration, they their whole thing, I'm gonna read it. They to improve housing standards and conditions, and then provide adequate home financing system through insurance of mortgage loans, and to stabilize the housing market. Um, so it was to establish the whole housing banking system that we see today, and in the housing markets that we see today. And so these were, so it allowed people who just had moderate incomes to be able to mortgage these homes that were subsidized. These were federally subsidized homes, federally subsidized mortgages, and all of that. And a lot of times, these homes, like the cost of these homes, like on a monthly basis, were lower than that of in the city. So that was another um, marketing strategy they used. Now, all while they were doing this, the federal government made it mandatory for these developers and these banks to add um, clauses, and it's called a racially restrictive covenant. So they include these clauses in the deeds of the homes that prevented African Americans from buying homes in the suburbs. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
did you get that?
Say it, repeat
Prevented
it.
them, huh?
I said repeat it. You said, did I
I
get it?
said, so these homes, the federal government mandated that they put clauses in the deeds of the homes called racially restrictive covenants that
Racially restricted.
prevented African Americans from repurchasing these homes. They couldn't purchase them in the first place. They couldn't banks. They and because of that, they could not get loans. They could not get federal these FHA loans to be able to purchase these homes. It was in the deeds. Then, so now you have a mass migration of white people going out to the suburbs on the federal government's dime. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then at simultaneously, because we're moving from a different era, we're moving from where railroads mostly bought industrial materials in, and et cetera, et cetera. 1950s and so on made it easier for a middle class family to buy a vehicle. Highways were being developed at this time, so industries, businesses did not need to be in the cities anymore. So what they did was is they moved out to the suburbs too. So now, not only do you move white people out to the suburbs in these single family homes, but then you take the businesses out of the city. And who's left in the city? Black people. So now these public houses, right? So now all the white public housing is becoming vacant, And then the black public housing, they have these long waiting lists. And so eventually what they did was they opened up the public housing that was meant for the white people and put all the black people that were on the waiting list in those, because they couldn't go out and get those houses. So, and they still needed housing. So they put them in this public housing. Now, this is where things start to shift. Now, because you've taken all the businesses from these areas, now you're starting to see that these areas, the families are going to start becoming impoverished due to lack of job opportunities. Okay. Um, what else? So they're impoverished now because of that. And so the government, this is when the government went and started, because people can no longer like pay their bills. These were people that had decent incomes and could have very well afforded to buy homes in the suburbs, but were prevented to do so through these set of um, legislations, federal policies and legislation. And you got, and sorry, I'm like trying to make sure I catch every detail,
No,
like
I'm
as we're
tracking.
talking. And so that's when they started subsidizing the rent for these homes. Then we have the ushering in of civil rights. But at the time, and so this is where we get into the second Reconstruction, right? Civil rights. But civil rights
Are you
mainly
about to
dealt with,
transition from housing to civil rights completely?
yeah, yeah.
All right,
So
let me
we're
give 2 cents.
oh yeah, I don't know if you, so don't go past this point because we're gonna get on that.
I want to
And
highlight.
don't add the icing on the cake because we're gonna get to that later.
Yeah,
So
I just want to highlight some things from what you were
mhm.
saying and talking about the Housing Act. What was it called specifically again?
So it was the 1949 Housing Act, and then you also had the Federal Housing Administration under. It was a lot of different programs and policies, and it's all under the New Deal.
So let me walk us back to the first Reconstruction as we continue to
Mm-hmm,
move on through history.
mm-hmm,
Frederick Douglass
mm-hmm,
was called to speak at the World Tour, World event, something that America was putting on. Look it up in y'all history books. It's called Google. America was putting on a world tour show pretty much to everyone in the world as to why America was the future power going forward and why everybody should think about and embrace coming to America. We're going to get into all of these laws and acts that was passed for us, but was not
mm-hmm,
really for us. And
mm-hmm,
at this convention, there was no black representation. In fact, our black representation was zoo demonstrations, us and little African draws and crazy looking things, just dancing and doing shouts and pretty much making it seem like we are just amusement. No
mm-hmm,
mind, no intelligence, nothing to apply to the world. This is an event that was put on to show what every culture was giving to the world and to America, which is what Miss Ida B. Wells went on strike and protest to do, and she got approved to come and put on her tour and represent us. It went horrible. I'm pretty sure it was a lot of sabotage into her trying to demonstrate all the positive things that black African Americans did in America that they did not want us to see in there. They didn't want us to see all the things that we did in the law, all the things that we did in medicine, all the things that we did to the development of the country, and they still don't want us to see it. And you know what
mm-hmm,
Frederick Douglass said there? All of that to just say this. Frederick Douglass at his speech said, listen, we don't need politics right now. We don't need to be into what y'all are doing and all the powers and all of that. What black people need, what my people need, is simply 40 acres and a mule. and it will
Mhm.
end. We
Mhm.
just need to. That's the start. No, we
Mhm.
trying to do all this other stuff. We don't even. We don't. They never gave us what we were supposed to get in our first
Oh,
Reconstruction. That's what we was
well, this is
asking
the
for.
thing, and that's what I forgot. I'm gonna go back into they. They technically gave it, and then that I'm gonna be nice. Andrew Johnson, he came in and said, "Nah," because that it was a war. Like people try to act like, oh, it was just like a little civil disagreement. No, like they completely separated as a nation. The Confederates completely separated as a nation from the United States. They left all political offices and everything. We're talking about people dying. Like this was an all-out war. And so in war, you can confiscate property. So what they did was they confiscated the property, and it was given the 40 acres and all of that given to the now freed slaves. But you know, uh, Lincoln got assassinated. Andrew came in with all his KKK ideologies and all of that, and he said, "No, return all the property back to its rightful owner."
They're still getting reparations today for their lands and the
Yeah.
loss of
Oh
freedom.
yeah. The loss of property, and yeah, there are insurance agencies still operating to this day that gave um that cover insurance for loss of property. Abraham Lincoln set aside $1 million in DC for loss of property. There are many examples of slave owners getting paid reparations. But you know, that's we're going to get to that topic on another segment um about that. Yeah, because we're going to spill the beans on those. But
All the
something
beans.
else I want to add to this era before we go into civil rights is, so when they started, because I left off with them subsidizing the rent now for these families that can no longer pay um the rent in public housing because they don't have any jobs anymore because all the jobs have left. Well, this is also the same time when they stopped doing preventative maintenance on public housing in the neighborhoods. They wouldn't come pick up the trash as often. All these different things. And this feeds into the stereotype. See, um, people want to act like, oh, our neighborhoods are the way they are because we did it. And it's like, no, the government chooses not to put any money into those neighborhoods, on top of the fact that these neighborhoods can't fund themselves because there's no economic basis in those neighborhoods if people don't own any property. Because aside from the public housing, these the the other houses in those areas, they still couldn't get loans. They still couldn't get bank loans for those homes.
And
And anytime, hold on, real quick, and then I'll let you talk real quick. And anytime you have um impoverished communities, you're going to also have impoverished schools. And I'm gonna go on to that in a minute, but go ahead, what you want to say.
I just had a little parenthesis. I was just going to say I would just like to put the nail on the hammer and talk about communities like Detroit, Michigan. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about the first car. This is one of the booming
Mm-hmm.
economical industries in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And they did that specifically in a city like that where all of this brilliance was coming from, which they don't
Mm-hmm.
like to talk about what we contributed to it.
Mm-hmm.
And they completely left those type of cities to be managed
Mm-hmm.
by a people who still didn't even get their 40 acres and a mule. We're talking about
Mm-hmm.
the Housing
On
Act
top
in
of
this
that,
era. In this era.
yeah. So we just layering on the racism. Like we're layering on top of slavery. Now we got all this because there's always backlash
Frederick
to these
Douglass said, we need the basics. And they gave
mm-hmm.
us
they just stripped more. And so we're gonna skim through civil rights real quick because there's not really a whole lot there. We all know what happened specifically, but people don't understand what all didn't happen. So civil rights pretty much changed. It was social integration, right? Um, but not economic integration. These were things that changed on the surface. You know, water fountains are, you got two separate water fountains. Okay, you say we're doing away with segregation. Okay, the next day you can use the other water fountain. Buses, the next day you can get on the bus and you can sit wherever you want.
Can
Now,
we
when it
not
comes,
call? Go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know civil rights means civil rights, but a lot of people it's whitewashed now. You just think civil rights and you just think about one thing. I would rather we call it the Human Decency Act. All y'all did was
Yeah,
give
just
us basic.
decency.
Y'all can be less. I wouldn't even say we was less than 3/5 of a man. We may have become 4/5 of a man at that point.
Yeah, something like that. Because the thing is that was just the first thing. Let's get rid of the overt, direct uh, contradiction to the Constitution that's happening in the South. Let's get rid of that first. It's easy. It don't cost no money. This is what I was talking about last time. It don't cost the government money to do those types of integrations. Okay, so upon the so let's get in, I talked about phase two briefly once. How phase two was to include trying to fix the poverty issue, which really is this housing issue. And also, let me backtrack because I see I'm more stuff's coming back to me now.
Run it
I'm sitting
back,
here
run it
talking about
back,
it.
run it back.
This wasn't the only thing that was happening with the whole suburbs and all that. It was also the farms. The farms were being, so if someone wanted to, if someone had the money to go out and get a farm, and they wanted to go that route, and go on business for themselves, that was also federally funded. So immigrants just coming in, white immigrants coming in, and they can go ahead and purchase land, federally funded. They also
What kind
federally
of immigrants did you
funded
say?
the white immigrants.
Okay, we're still in the second
And yeah,
Reconstruction too.
because
We
we
got to talk
still we
about all
still
the
on
other
white immigrants.
immigrants.
We haven't got to the civil rights part. I backtracked real quick.
Okay,
Um
I love it.
so you got the white immigrants coming in, and they're getting federal subsidies for farms, and then they're also getting federal subsidized education to teach them how to farm that Black people did not have access to. You might have some small exceptions to the rules, but I'm talking about a collective.
Have
It wasn't
access
that.
to? They didn't even let us keep our families together.
Yeah, we're
We
gonna
can't
get
even
into that
keep
in
the
a minute.
family within our knowledge, let alone get knowledge to help run what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, you better preach, man. Um, so skip forward to civil rights. This was that we already know what phase one was about. We learned about it in school, blah blah blah. Right? Phase two, we were supposed to deal with certain things. One of those things being the housing situation, which um, was mostly what Malcolm was focused on, and it was hard to try to get Martin to understand like it's a different type of fight when we're talking about things that are going to cost the government money now. And needless to say, like I said before, a lot of the details and what phase two entailed, I believe, is the reason why he was assassinated. Now, we did get a small nugget thrown at us to pacify us once they did chop the head off. And that was LBJ signing the the what was the Fair Housing Act. So he signed the Fair Housing Act, so you can't discriminate on the basis of, all the discriminatory things. I'm not fitting to sit here and listen. You can go read them. So he does that, but it's totally different. If because we're dealing with economics now. So the day after they go ahead and sign that, how is someone the next day going to be able to go out, and this is a collective, go out and now purchase homes of their choice, use these loans that they have no economic basis anymore, because mind you, they've now become impoverished. Okay, so with what money are they gonna now go and be able to take advantage of these these this newfound right that they should have had all along to go purchase homes, use loans, get more. And mind you, a lot of the discrimination still continued. Um, so, but that was the bone they threw us, was just, okay, well, you're not going to be discriminated against. Okay, that's not going to be able to undo all of the, and I'm going to repeat it, federally sanctioned policies and legislation that impoverished and left the Black community where it was, while they gave the white immigrants boots, bootstraps, and every damn thing else in order to lift themselves up. And so this is the thing. Over the next few generations, generation or two, with the economic, with the equity they gained, this is the white people in the suburbs, the equity they gained with these homes, they were able to either pass that down to their children, and their children can do what they want. They can sell it and take that money and then go on and have a down payment or whatever on their home. And mind you, a lot of those homes that they purchased were really inexpensive because, like I said, they were subsidized and the mortgage rates were really low. So though the percentage of equity like skyrocketed on these homes, they were able to leverage the mortgage to be able to send their children to schools. Mind you, they got good high school educations because why? Their schools are funded because they have equity and economics in their communities. Okay, so they can do all these things because now they have economic wealth. If they go through a bout of unemployment, you got some leeway because you got economic wealth. Like, so many things you can do once you have property and equity. Okay, so now, yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna start putting the icing on this race bait cake.
Make it sweet.
Okay, so now you got impoverished communities, poor education system, because your schools are directly tied with the housing market in your area. Now you got drugs flowing through the communities. Now drugs was flowing through all the communities, right? Cocaine in the suburbs, crack in the inner city.
Where they come from?
So, we're gonna touch it.
The ones who's writing these laws we complain about.
If you want it,
no,
well, okay.
I said it. The ones
but I'm gonna just say
we're complaining about the laws and how they were put up. The same drugs came from the people who were complaining about.
Yep. They were put there. Government's hands was all in that. Now, what do you expect if you have a group of people who are impoverished, and they have nothing to lose? They got two choices: become the user or become the dealer. And no one knows and no one will ever be able to understand what, unless they were alive during that time, the type, the psychological impact that this type of stuff had on them at this time to become a user. Now, I'm not saying this is like everybody, but I'm saying look at the whole picture.
Can I add
This
another
is not
parenthesis?
people that have opportunities. Likewise with the dealer,
Let me
this is
add, let
not
me let me
someone.
add something real deep to what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Because you said that we cannot really comprehend. But I thought of something. What are we both?
We're black. No,
No,
when I say we,
affiliates to the country. What did we do? We served in the military. Even
yes.
in the 20th, 21st century,
Mm-hmm.
nothing compared to the wars that we went through. I mean, they're called World War One and World War Two for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
Yeah.
specifically thinking about Vietnam and the way that
Yeah.
our communities came back. But
And
we
see,
were
all
big
that was
parts of
happening.
all of those wars. And I'm
And
like,
see,
wow, all the things we come
yeah,
back with from wars, all the things that we see we come
exactly.
back from being in the military, they got done with World War Two. These are people in our communities, people that of color that don't have anything to go to. They don't have any homes. They don't have any finances, careers,
I'm gonna add
families.
to that.
Go ahead, take
I'm
it.
gonna add to that. The black veterans coming back from war could not qualify for FHA loans or VA loans for homes. Think about that. Just
And
think about that. That
I
they
am.
served their country and this country cannot return the favor to them. On top of all of the discrimination, the racism, you're going to put them in impoverished communities suffering from both racial psychological damage as well as war, PTSD. On top of that, you
So
got a plethora of psychological issues
the
going
opioids,
on,
man.
and these people have nothing to lose. This is the thing. These people have nothing to lose. Likewise with dealers, they have nothing to lose. It's if they're not going to become the users, they're trying to do something to feed their family, trying to do something
You
to
have to
get
make a
ahead
choice, or
because
you're
it's
gonna make a
not
choice.
coming from their environment. They have no opportunities in their environment. Now we have some that got out, this and the other. And we're gonna get, after we go through all this, we're gonna talk about the pretty much the basic options that the black person has on getting out of their community. We talked about this before, but we're gonna keep adding the layers to this stuff. Okay, so this is
We
another
got
thing.
you.
This is another thing. Okay, so remember when I was talking about how a lot the thing, the rules and regulations to public housing started to change, and how when white people were there, oh, you had to be married, this, that, and the other, you know. Now it's like, oh, well, we're subsidizing your rent, so the man can't be living there because between the two of you, you should have some income, but that wasn't the case. And so now we start with welfare, pushing the man out of the home. On top of the fact
Same
that
slavery tactics.
exactly, on top of the fact that the loophole in the 13th Amendment has never gone away. And so due to they want to try to flip, so now we got drugs in the community. Now drugs is in all the communities, but we specifically going to target this community and make it a war on drugs in this community. There, we're going to make their sentences for this drug, the sentences for drugs for using crack or having crack in your possession were way higher than that of cocaine. Like, I don't know any other way to look at it other than racially targeted. And like I said, really, you really didn't have to be doing nothing. But if you were doing something, you gonna get you're gonna get this time. They made it an all-out war. They started putting more police out on the streets. And see, because I almost forgot. You don't let me forget about how. Now this is Nixon, right? This is Nixon's time frame. He's the one that started this whole war on drugs rhetoric. You know, he started the war, getting people all terrified and up in an uproar, right? And they just mass incarceration, just the numbers are just doubling and skyrocketing on them locking up men or black people in general. And on top of that, any black leader that pops up in the community that's actually trying to do positive things for the community, they're assassinating and murdering left and right. Black Panthers, Fred Hampton, like just taking people that were actually doing things for the community, free food programs, just completely just taking every little bit of hope of being able to build this community up, this bootless community up by its bootstraps. Like, okay, so you got all of that. I don't know if you got anything to add before I go on and keep going with this Nixon. I'm all over the place because I'm starting to get hot and bothered and pissed off.
Second construction. I got some things to add.
Because we're dealing with the backlash of the second reconstruction is what I'm like mostly. Did you have anything in particular?
So, in regards to backlash, I want to talk about some of the things and the systems and the institutions. We're hitting on prison hard. We're hitting on all of the reform. We're hitting on all the things that are right in our face that we don't really even acknowledge. But something I want to talk about, we talked about how we developed the first car, how that industry started came in and it boomed and it changed the world. I want to just give a reflection on also the scientific era that happened. Also the medical era that boomed and the parties and how they were used going into the second construction and the backlash, because with the scientific...
Well, not going in, coming out of the second reconstruction, coming out the backlash. That's when parties start. That's when it was under Nixon that he got the southern states to start voting Republican under this whole propaganda that they were pushing on the media about war on drugs, which is just a code word for let's lock up all these black people.
I want to talk also about what you're saying with Nixon. When they started changing all the legislation, how you said he just pretty much reworded it. From the first Reconstruction going into the second Reconstruction, they reworded the word slave and just put Negro. So we got rid of, I forget what it's called, but it's like what they did when they rewrote the policies. They were lazy written policy, and they pretty much said, let's just take out the word slave and just put the Negro. And what you're saying is they did the same thing. That's what we're talking about, y'all. The Reconstruction, this problem is not being solved.
Nope. Reconstruction backlash.
And the further we go into our reconstructions, we're going to get into the more systematic things that has been done to us. And that's why I brought up medicine, because we got to talk about the medical apartheid that we've been through and how from there in science and every single thing being looked upon us, we went from being looked at as 3/5 of a man to being looked at genetically inferior, less than. I mean, they even said as babies, our brains and skulls developed like that, which made us less intelligent and gave them the right to bust our heads open, to examine and experiment. Gynecology, women, the things that we're doing for women, I mean, it's a blessing now, but y'all have to look up whose backs and whose bodies, who women have had 40 vaginal surgeries in the name of experiments. Y'all know they were black women, right? All of these things were done systematically. We're not just talking about the prison reform. We're not just talking about the housing laws. It's every single root.
Every system.
So the backlash is outrageous. It's the system you're working in today. But we're gonna get to the third reconstruction. But yeah, the backlash.
Yeah, because see, people use, and I'm glad you talked about it, because people talk about systemic racism, and then you got a group of people that don't understand systemic racism. And what we're doing right now is explaining it. But we're just doing like the brief, like we're just doing the tip of the iceberg systemic racism, because we simply don't have enough time to explain 400 years of systemic racism. But this should be enough information for anyone
Word is
who
enough.
didn't know this stuff to go do further research. We talk Planned Parenthood. Okay, so now we got fathers out of the home welfare. Then we got locking up the fathers, mass incarceration, and then again back on the foundation of no economic basis. Okay, so now you got people getting pregnant because it's a doggy dog world in the inner city, and
Let's
people.
not just say it's a doggy dog world. Ladies and
Okay,
gentlemen, if we look at the economics of the entire world and the people who are more in poverty,
purpose.
the people
Yeah,
who have
let
more or
me make
less,
choice with my
what
words.
what do you do more when you are in poverty? You party and screw.
Party, screw, and you don't
Half
have nothing to lose. You're trying to constantly find an escape route. Okay, so now you got people getting pregnant, and they got what's your options? Terminate or have the child, and now you're even more economically strained. It puts, and this is the thing, they knew this, they understood this, and they put those Planned Parenthoods in our communities on all the
planning
on the
process
corners. Put them in.
along with the liquor stores and gun shops.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, don't get me started on it. But go ahead, because I want you to expound too, because I did a whole lot of talking right there. So, you got anything else you want to pinpoint out um, about just
The backlash, exiting the second reconstruction. Um, I guess the last thing that I would want to hit on before we get into the third reconstruction and where we at is
Oh
one
no,
of.
because I got something else
Oh,
to
you got
add. I
some
mean,
more.
yeah, I got a little bit more to expand on mass incarceration, and then we got school to prison pipeline, and then we usher it. And this is the thing. This I want to call these presidents out. I want to make sure people know, because this goes from this war on drugs, this mass incarceration. This can take from Nixon to um what what's the one, Reagan, and George Bush,
Every
and
last one of them.
Bill Clinton, like I'm telling
Sorry
you,
to
like
say it,
each
y'all, but
one just kept adding on and putting, just making matters worse. And you're telling me in all those years y'all couldn't see that what y'all were doing was making the situation worse? You can't tell me they didn't know. Y'all put more y'all put more
you telling me you
um
don't think they was just trying to make America great again?
no, like you can't tell me like that's insanity. You continuously do something over and over again and you get the same results. Like that's insanity. Like they put more police officer on the street, more longer sentences, and all it does is the uh, crime rates increase. Crime rates. I'm gonna use air quotes, because this is something I want to say is that, do you know that 95% of these so-called crimes never actually go to trial? You got people who are economically impoverished. They're in, and they have no means of being able to get a lawyer. You got a um, public defender that will roll in on the day that you are due to be in court and tell you whether you innocent or not, take the plea deal. If you don't, you going to get at such and such amount of years. Okay? So a lot of these people that are locked up, we don't know how many, but we don't know who's all innocent and who's guilty because 95% never even go to trial. So like it really just goes back to like you don't they can get you for anything and you're going to jail because you're not going to trial, you're not going to get a fair trial, and if you do, or you they
Land of the
scare
free,
you
home
into
of the
not
free.
even go, they scare you into not going to trial,
Scare,
right?
fear tactics.
And then how can you even trust a public defender to fight in your interest? And then this is the thing, at these times, and I don't know what the percentage is in these times, but then like 95% of like prosecutors are white. You like there's no representation of us in these things. Like you're probably not gonna get a fair trial. They just telling you up front, like take the deal. Then you know Bill Clinton comes in and he just makes the whole situation way worse. He's establishing mandatory minimums, and then he came up with 3 strikes and you're out. You could do 3 strikes of something basic, and you're in jail for life. There's somebody in jail to this day for having some little bit of marijuana. Meanwhile, marijuana dispensaries were considered a um a essential service during Corona. Like, how did like make it make sense? So you got mandatory minimums. Judges can't even use their logical judgment to
Bring me
rule.
the tears, man.
They have to give these people certain sentences, and the list just goes on. This is when militarizing just went through the roof. You got SWAT teams on the street for your citizens. For your citizens? Come on, yo.
You know what's heartbreaking is we're talking about this era, and one of the hardest drugs that were made to think. I don't know, but what I want to talk about is I just watched a documentary
Hmm.
about cocaine and how all of it, the whole story, and at the end of it, it's pretty much got all these doctors advocating on how cocaine and crack has amazing benefits to society, predominantly with Alzheimer's.
Hmm. I mean,
And
they've been putting cocaine in Ritalin for ADHD for I don't know how many years. I mean, that's what they did originally back in the 90s. I don't know what they're doing now, but the
and what
cocaine was all
cocaine has
Ritalin.
made us do to ourselves, each other, and our whole as a community from them is devastating. We're sitting here advocating just to free people from selling marijuana, and now we're going. You already said it. They are already profiting off of cocaine. Get. I don't even want to speak on
Oh
it.
yeah, they profited off of it, and then they profited off of it 2 times by locking people up for it.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically crack though, because you pretty much your sentence for cocaine was way less than crack. Not by coincidence, not by or that's not by accident. That's definitely by design. Um, and then
Drug
we're
handlers
slowly
punishing drug
coming into
handlers.
this time period. We slowly, and the last thing I'm gonna add to that is the privatized prison complex, and how I really want people to take a look at the businesses they frequent, the businesses that they put their money in, that they spend their money on, because a lot of these businesses today are still using this free labor. And I never understood I've never understood how this has been allowed to happen. And some other fact I want to just go ahead and throw out there because I want people to understand these numbers and see how fucked up this shit is that We have 5% of the world's population,
Mm-hmm.
but we have 25% of the world's prison populations. Like, it doesn't make sense. It don't add up. So you really telling me that, like, so
We're one
what are you trying
twentieth
to
of
tell
the
us?
nation.
That,
We're 1/20th of the world, but 1/4 of the prison population. Write down those
yeah,
fractions.
yeah. Please do make it make sense.
Because we would need to be at least 25%. So we would need to be 25% of the population, not 5.
Yeah,
So it's
and if
almost,
you
to break
and
it
if
down to the people that don't think mathematically, think about as many black people as you saw and times it by 5.
mm-hmm.
That's what
On
happened.
top of the fact that the people in the prison populations aren't even an equal representation of the actual population. We know that it's disproportionately people of color in in incarcerated. We know it's them. And I just explained all the reasons why we know it's them. And then again, America continues to be able to benefit off of free labor. So many businesses you wouldn't even begin to think of. I completely had to stop shopping at my underwear store. They benefit from free labor. I don't. They want to use all fancy words now and all of that. I ain't got time for that. That's free labor.
History of it. History,
So
making them words sound good. Uh, are we closing out? Moving to our third?
yeah, I can't think of like anything else.
My last thing I have is just a quote from one of the greatest black men that we have seen, who even went to Harvard in 1895, the great W.E. Du Bois,
Mm-hmm.
who wrote the book Black Reconstruction, which I'm going to recommend at the end, said,
Mm-hmm.
the slaves went free, stood a brief moment in the sun, then moved
Mm-hmm.
right back into slavery. This is in the early 1900s, y'all. But shout out to my man who made it to the promised land
Mm-hmm.
and died and rested in Ghana, which I'll be saying one day, hopefully in my life, if prison time don't get to me.
For real, for real, exactly. Oh, and before we do move forward, so we discussed this before, so I'm going to pose this question to you. So, in the environment that we just explained, how do black people, what options do black people have to get themselves out of that environment without falling trapped to it? Now, what we're about to explain are exceptions to the rule, but this does not work for the collective because all of these areas we're about to name, there's only a small percentage of people that can go into them. So let's list them off. I mean, we both can start with the first ones, which was the option we chose, which was military.
Mm.
You remember where I was military? That
I was
is,
just, that's funny because that first option was literally the first thing I was thinking about is ways out. And I,
mm-hmm,
ladies and gentlemen, we're about to advocate for the military. And guess what? It is a great, it's an okay institution to go into and better
yeah.
your life and take
If
advantage of things that you have.
even if you don't retire, it's a good stepping stone. It can put you in a better position than you started with if you just coming out of high school. I did 3 years of college before I came into the military, but
Mm-hmm.
I had good results.
And
I can have a plethora of
And I'll
opportunities.
make my point very quick so we can keep it pushing. The
Mm-hmm.
military is great. Go in. I would recommend that every black man should go. Not every black man, because I don't. That's not true. Every young
It's not
man
possible.
or woman who is seeking direction in life
Mm-hmm.
should go to the military, do 4 years, get paid college, get paid to go
Mm-hmm.
to college, build a savings fund, do all those
Hmm.
things and learn how to
Investment
become
portfolio,
an adult.
all of it.
401ks, you completely become and learn what it is to be an
You
adult and
get
how to
paid to
survive.
learn a skill.
Yep.
You get paid to learn a skill. So,
Paid to learn a
um,
skill, not
so,
paying to go to school and
hmm
not get a skill. But there is so many
but
systemic things in going into the military as well.
yeah, there is, and and on top of the fact that the military is only 1% of the population, so everybody
Mm-hmm.
can't go.
Because I don't want white people to be like, oh, but we got the military. Y'all can go. Nah,
Yeah,
we can't
and
even
it's
do
not
that
going to
because
be
there's
for
so many people I
everyone.
could think of that can't go in.
But I'm letting people. I need people to understand like what our options. Like if we're
I'm with
because
you.
the thing is if we stay
Military,
there,
number one.
it's just going to be a cycle because we have no economic base. So we're never going to get anywhere with that with no economic. Like our parents, it'll just be a constant cycle, and that's what the mat. That's what it is. That's what's going on. It's a complete cycle of falling trap to all the traps that they lay for you. Okay. So the other one is just outright school. Now,
Mm.
this is the thing though. This is the thing though, is that you're going to have to get a scholarship. Okay. Because if your family does not have an economic base, they have no money to send you to school. Now they have like all the student loans and all of that, but mm, I that ain't. I, I mean, I have yet to know someone where that kind of like really worked out for them, where they're not paying student loans off for God knows how long.
Mm-hmm.
So I always say like as far as like good options that are not going to put you in debt, like it's school scholarship. Okay, so you're going to actually, but this is the problem though, is that you're going to have to try to get a scholarship off of a subpar education. That is really hard to do. And then then you get certain races that get pissed off because of affirmative action and being able to, I don't know if affirmative action applies to like the school. I don't if it has a different name than affirmative action when
Affirmative
they
action is definitely. Oh, go ahead.
that is that the correct
I was going to see
terminology
what you
for
said.
when they
Affirmative action in school systems is things that they've done, like saying schools like Harvard have to have a percentage of black
yeah,
people that come
yeah,
to the school.
exactly. And what I just
Job security,
explained
yeah.
is to offset that because people like you get like people send you through this guilt trip for these little bones that they throw at us to try to make up for the problem, but instead they should really fix the problem and then we wouldn't need affirmative action. But
Mm-hmm.
how are people supposed to get scholarships and things like that with subpar educations? And then, like, even if you don't get a scholarship and you just go through the loan route, like, remember, you had a subpar education, okay? Same thing with even going in the military. You know what my recruiter told me
Mm-hmm.
when
What
I
do you lie
tested for the
about?
ASVAB? Not a lot of people from here scored this high on the ASVAB. Now, I went to a recruiter in the city, but what he didn't know is that I went to school in the suburbs. But I wasn't living no lavish life. Yeah, I was in an apartment in the suburbs. Went in, know how you know what I mean? So I want to
Mm-hmm.
put that into perspective for people. Um, and then my mom did certain things to be able to make sure my mom was very strategic. And I didn't live with my mom, but um, when I was older, but my mom was very strategic on where my grandma lived so that she was in good neighborhoods so that I could get a good education in the suburbs, which allowed me to be able to test high on the ASVAB, to be able to pick the job of my choice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These things play roles because I'm telling you, I knew someone who went in, who shipped out on the same day as me, and he went to an inner city school, and he did not even he did not even pass the ASVAB, like the minimum for the Marines. He didn't even make the minimum. But they went through and waivers, yada yada yada. So it's like that stuff's important. Like the education piece. And then you got your other ones where you can go entrepreneur route, like or no, sports, your favorite sports, or you could go in the music industry. That's again small percentages, exceptions to the rules.
I wanted to talk
Not
about the
standard.
counter to going into school and going into these institutions who are setting us up to fail as well. Got another option outside of military, going to college, trade school, going to practice a trade, go and
Trade
get a
school.
skill.
Yep, that too. But you have certain ones have caps on them. You know, um, trade school, college, it depends. But anyway,
Y'all can
it's
see how
somewhere.
much joy and
It's somewhere.
excitement we got with giving you these options.
Mm.
I ain't smiled yet. I mean,
Exactly,
we can
exactly.
talk.
Because
I want to be devil's advocate about them all. So yeah,
yeah, exactly.
what
Because
to
it's
do?
like we already know that all of them are small. Small. Everybody can't get into all these things that we just listed. Okay, and like actually some of the best ones are it gets smaller as the option is better, and these are the things that we're faced with or continue to be in the cycle. And a lot of people don't even realize, or they're just comfortable that's what they see, they accept this is just what it is. For us Black people, they don't even realize that it's been set up this way. They've laid all these traps, and most times people fall trapped to them before they even get to the age of 18. Like getting to the age of 18 without falling trapped into
Impossible.
all those traps they set for you, that is hard. It's hard to do. And
Your
that's
parents
something
pretty
like
much got to be
people.
Frederick Douglass and Ida B. Wells.
Yeah, and this is not even a color thing, because white people in these neighborhoods, it's not it's we know that it's disproportionately us in these neighborhoods, but people fall trap to all these same traps too, because it's not about the skin color necessarily, unless we're dealing with certain things, but the traps are there. So they also get caught up in some of those traps with no way out and repeating cycles.
And I'm happy you said that because as soon as you said they set these traps, we fall to these traps, and even white people fall these traps. I want to highlight the they, and it's the power that who is controlling white supremacy, the
Mm-hmm.
power at B that's putting them on, because these traps
Mm-hmm.
are set up to
Yeah.
kill, steal,
Mm-hmm.
and destroy and take out
Yeah.
complete. We're documenting 400 years of constant oppression where there is no way we're going to recover or get better. No way. And guess what? What I want to say is, white people, y'all are put in the traps too, but y'all are put in the trap to feel better than the person
Yeah.
who is trapped with you. We forgot. I wanted to talk
Exactly.
about when we were sharecroppers and how all that happened and how we were building this wealth and coming together as Black people in Black Wall Street. Is
Mm-hmm.
that Black and white farmers used to work together. They were
Yep.
working together before
They
all
were.
these laws and stuff started coming together. The Black and white people were
Mm-hmm.
even working together.
Yep. Yep.
But then these laws that go, oh shit, we forgot to hit on women's rights.
I'm not gonna touch on women's rights. I'm not touching on it for real.
Oh man, that is.
But oh, I know what you did want to talk about. That I my bad. I had to get stuff out because I'm old and my memory and all of that. So I'm gonna go back to something I know you wanted to talk about. Dang, I think I just lost it again. Um, dang, you wanted to talk about. There was something in civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, maybe it'll come back to me.
Well, I want to say though, as we are going into this third Reconstruction, I gave a W.E.B. Du Bois quote, And as I'm reading it, I'm just like, wow, we pretty much went from, we always had field slaves and house slaves. These legislations pretty much said, let's make less field slaves, create more house slaves. We're going to keep on making it a little less burdenful, a little less oppressive. Less field
Hmm.
slaves, more house slaves. Now,
Give them
as
the
we
illusion.
continue through our reconstructions, is a majority of house slaves. We're all slaves. We don't realize it because we're in the house. We are continuing the motions, continuing the pain, continuing the depression. And now we get to the point of hitting into the second reconstruction. We started the backlash. We started seeing more and more predominant black people rise to celebrity, to statue,
Hmm.
to money. We took those house slaves, and now we got house slaves. And you know what we got to have now, Ashley? We got to have actual slave owners too. They can't just be house slaves. They have to have their own
Ownership.
people who are all doing the same thing. We went from field slaves to house slaves to slave owners. And I say that to call out millionaires and billionaires.
Yeah. I mean, but these millionaires and billionaires, a lot of them, someone writes their check. Billionaires are writing these millionaires' checks. Okay, so
Yeah.
they're not off the plantation. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, they got money to be able to um not have to have the same worries and struggles and all of that, but they still don't have any ownership. And I don't.
They own a house on the plantation that is statewide.
Yeah. And I,
Are we going to talk about the best solution? Because we talked about all the solutions that the suppressors give us in America.
yeah, yeah. Well, see, that was the um that's the state of our options at the moment.
Mm.
But we're
They are. I like
this
that you
stuff
said that
is
at
not
the moment.
that's not going to change in because what we just explained, we just explained like this whole wealth gap, like what I just explained explains. You remember when you said like what the wealth gap was between, like, so even now, like 40%, like there's a 40% income gap, but there's a 90% wealth gap, and we don't own anything on top of the fact of everything that transpired before then. And this is, and I want to hone in on something you were talking about. I might be like out of topic, but it's kind of going back to what you were talking about. um because I'm just going to say this: white people are allowing themselves to be utilized by the bigger system to reinforce this whole racism thing, just to feel good about being a little bit above someone else.
Now we have to
When,
talk about what it means to be white.
yeah, which is, until we fix that, like that real issue, and actually see the common enemy, the common threat that's keeping everyone from being an owner instead of a slave. Because this is the thing: masses of us, someone else writes the check. Someone else. We have few here and there that write their own check, but I, that needs to change. But before we can even get to those changes, really, for me, we need to undo all the backlash that has been done.
That's why you're hitting hard on that backlash, people.
That's why I'm hitting hard on the backlash, because it needs to be undone. And when we undo it and we go into this third reconstruction, we need to go into it with actually reconstructing and then don't come with no backlash. And then I think over time the rest will fix itself, because people will, start to see um, that, hey, we are equal. But if you're constantly portraying, because you've specifically designed this system in a certain way, and then you're constantly propagating that, a certain groups of people are going to truly feel, especially if they don't understand and never learn what we just explained here, they're always going to feel like they're better. I mean, you're going to have certain people that think they're better no matter what. Even if they see a billionaire or a millionaire, they're going to feel like they better just because they white. We can't fix those people, they ill. But we can fix some of this propaganda, though. And like, the rest will kind of like um, fix itself, correct itself. But we can't go into a third reconstruction and then get backlash after that. It's going to be repetitive. And something I want to hone in on is that the first reconstruction lasted 12 years. The second reconstruction, which was civil rights, was about 14 years, depends on when you want to start counting. So what we're going through right now, I don't expect it to be anything that happens overnight, few years, a year. No, expect a decade or so. Because this is not just a one bill it's not just defunding the police. Many things need to occur. Reconstruction, and think about the terminology there. We're restructuring America. We're trying to restructure it back to, we're not trying to restructure it to new, because people want to feel like, oh, it's anarchy and this, that. No, we need to restructure it so that it can honor its original intention set about in the Constitution. Why we continuously have to do this, that's an answer I can.
We want to make America great for the first time.
For the first time. Because it's not again, because please tell me when it was ever great for Black people. This whole people were coming to America for the American dream. People that immigrated from all these places through the Civil Rights Bill, which was intended for us. But like we know, anytime we can, anytime we're putting forth these bills and pushing these different things to make America live up to what it said it was supposed to do, it benefits everyone. So the same way civil rights to this day is still making people's lives better, and people are coming to America for the American dream, all while Black people were living an American nightmare. Please understand that when we say Black Lives Matter, it's going to benefit. It's always going to trickle down, or for everyone. Usually we are the last ones it gets to trickle down to, but that's a whole story for another day. But if you actually see what all the Civil Rights Bill did, because it wasn't just, I skimmed over the first part of it, but really need to look at that, that the immigration laws, if you haven't, and how that benefited immigrants from other countries other than Europe, and how honestly they used them against us too. But that's another story for another day too. You got anything
It's
to
gonna
add?
be another story for another day, because I'm already like, dang, I'm ready to do Reconstruction Part 1, Part 2,
Dang.
Reconstruction Part 2, Part 2. we gonna bring all this back again. We've been
Woo, how
talking
long we been
about
on here?
we almost at the 2 hour mark. So
Oh my goodness.
I want to talk about not talk about, I just want to say vaccines, schools, Africa's populations, Bill
We're not gonna
Gates.
talk
I
we're
just
not
want to
gonna
say
talk
all
about that.
these things that people need to be aware of, that how we were talking about the same industries who were affecting, whether it's the car industry, the medical industry, who were taking and using the people who meant the least to the world, us,
Mm-hmm.
and using them against their will. And we see who's being experimented on even today in 2020 in July.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But we're gonna cover that on another one because that's a whole thing we got to dive into.
Are we ending
Like a
Reconstruction?
whole, yeah, we're done with construction. and
I
and I just explained like what the foreshadowing was of the third reconstruction and all of that. We don't got anything more. I don't have anything more to
no,
add
me
to that. We
neither.
can go.
I got three books: Eric Fournier's
Mm-hmm.
America's Revolution, Marilyn Marber's The Second Reconstruction, and More Mondays, The Third Reconstruction. Three books that we all can write down and all get re-educated. And y'all know we're gonna be bringing that knowledge to y'all in the
So,
diaspora.
oh yeah. So which ones did you do? Because I got Reconstruction America, Unfinished Revolution, Race Reform and Rebellion, Second Reconstruction. That's Marable.
Yep,
Third
and then
Reconstruction, how the moral movement is overcoming the politics and division of fear. That's William Barbara second, and then of
that.
course W.E.B. Du Bois, the original Reconstruction. But
Oh,
um,
you ready?
I
Definitely get it.
but yeah, we it's
And the fun thing about looking those books up is they actually are available and you can get on most sources, unlike a lot of the other books that we need that they get taken away from us and
yeah them books.
$50,000.
65K books.
Our last topic. Um, the hold on, I gotta get the official name for all the acronyms.
Oh,
You ready to move to that?
yeah, yeah.
Caution against racially exploitive non-emergency.
Emergencies.
I
Karen
thought
Act.
I didn't know who Karen was, what Karen was when I heard about it. I'm like, whoa, this is deep. Actually, what the hell is going on out in Cali?
Man, so they passed the Karen Act. So I mean, it's against the law to file a false police report. That's always been standard, but it has never been. No one has ever been held accountable for summoning the police under racially motivated pretenses. So that is what this is doing. Is someone makes a phone call, um, summons the police officers for really no reason, racially motivated, i.e., someone dancing in the street, which
We were
happened
just
in
about to get
Alameda.
to our
You
highlighted
know,
events.
someone who lived in the neighborhood was dancing in the street in the bike lane. He didn't want to dance on the sidewalk because he didn't want to block pedestrians from being able to walk. He wasn't in the middle of the street. He just on the side of the street doing his little morning thing before he was getting ready to leave and go somewhere. Somebody calls the cops. They arrest him. It was and he police brutality as well. Locked him up.
Mm-hmm.
He's out now. But like stuff like that, we had to have a protest on that.
Shout out Amy Cooper, called the cops from the Bird Watcher, New York. My man out there watching birds, Ash.
Just crazy. Like there was a guy the other week. He just jogging in
Mm.
Alameda. Yo, Alameda got some shit with them. They
And
mad racist over here. Um, told him go back to Oakland. So black people can't go jogging in Alameda. Like, what do you mean go back to Oakland? Like, how do you know he lives in Oakland? Like, they try to. Alameda is really racist. Like, they feel like all the black people need to be in Oakland and this is their area and whatever.
that's talking about going in areas that you're not meant to go to, according to them. Let's talk about one of the biggest events that was with the news story about the Karen Act is the dude that stenciled Black Lives Matter on his property. White lady
Mm-hmm.
comes up, call the cops, and he's like, "This is my house, lady." She's like, "No, it's not. You can't afford to live here. This is way too nice." And continues to
Hmm.
call, and they
Yeah.
came into.
And he said, "Do you know?" He even gave her an option. Said, "Do you know who lives here?" She was like, "Yeah, I do know who lives here." And he was like, "Oh, you do." And it was so funny. I like this had a good outcome to this story, and it was because the cops, they came. They didn't even get out the car. They recognized him. They were like, "Hey," and kept it moving. But that is less common than the other scenarios. Um, Usually, it can result in brutality, arrest, charges, even death. So I'm glad that this act was
These
passed
situations wouldn't have went down like this in the deep south. I know that.
so that they can be held accountable. They can be held accountable for putting people in harm's way. A second, in addition to that, um, San Francisco will be training unarmed officers to respond to community disputes, homelessness, mental illness, etc., etc. Because the thing is, simply put, um, the police does not need to respond to these minute incidences. Like, you're bringing these military. Have explained this before. You're bringing these militarized officers in, and they're looking for a threat, and they're gonna make one, find one if they have to. Um, Instead of, we can get some other agencies, invest back in the community, get other agencies that are better apt to deal with these small, trivial matters. Like, do we really need a police officer dealing with neighborhood disputes and stuff like that? Like, no. And homeless people and no, like we have, yeah. Um,
All of the
I think
Black
that
Lives Matter cases, man, all of the things that we are getting killed on are issues that are like under
we have
25
social
bucks, man.
workers
Selling
that are,
single cigarettes.
yeah, we have like
Those shit.
social workers and stuff that are better able to defuse the
Yeah.
situations. And so we need to be funding those types of agencies.
Human decency. I thought we passed that act with the civil rights.
Yeah, human decency.
No.
No, no, not so much.
All right. Are we done? We giving out lectures, y'all. This is a
I
two
know.
hour college like this could change your life. All of this information just
I didn't think it was gonna take that long, but apparently it did.
I'm happy it did. I'm happy it did because people who want to take the Diaspora series, we ain't here playing around. If you're going to watch and listen to you, we know. It's like coming to class with your professor. You know who's actually, hey, man, y'all come and learn this knowledge because I can guarantee you just, if somebody had this information for me a year ago doing this, I'm like, wow, this
Mhm.
would have changed your life.
Yeah. A lot of people, if they knew this information just growing up in schools, I feel like it could change the trajectory of the way people move. Like, if I understood, I was told, yeah, I had to work twice as hard to even be considered the same level. But if I really understood that, like, my situation differs from the ones I'm going to school with, and my opportunities are totally different, I would have done some things different. Not that, like, I was doing like any of the worst stuff or anything like that, outside of just being a normal teenager. Um, but had I recognized those things, I would have done some things differently.
Are we ready for some fuckery tonight?
Yeah.
Because
Yes,
geez
because I'm like, this
Louise,
topic
man.
is heavy.
Yeah,
Get
this
ready.
is this is this is heavy, y'all. I hope y'all appreciate it. Let's talk about some fuckery, man.
Oh, Lord.
Black Twitter needs a wake up call.
Yeah.
Jada versus August. I mean
Oh,
Karen versus August, man. Shout out August putting out the bangers, some great music. Oh
yo, he's like the
man,
worst side. He's like the worst side dude ever in history. He been
all your
snitching
dirt on the
though.
streets,
He was snitching last year in music videos and songs. Like
snitching like it's
that dude
hot.
was never slick. I don't know why everybody was like in shock when this song came out because like I said, he been snitching. Go check out what was the other song that he put out last year? It was called Nunya.
Nanya.
Nunya was last year, and then this year he put out Entanglement. It's all related to Jada. So
So Nanya, he's talking and messaging somebody named Karen. Jada,
Corinne,
I mean, what I say, Karen, Corinne, and
Corinne.
that was last year, and this year it
Mm,
comes out more. Although
mm-hmm,
it's with his album release and everything
mm-hmm.
going on,
They,
why are we paying more attention to it now? Because when you realize that he's been doing this, he's been snitching, he's been coming out about their relationship and where he's at with it.
yeah. He put it on blast, and then Will felt some type of way because he's like, all black Twitter's in our business. I'm like, no, August put us in your business. Like it wasn't us. We didn't just come out of nowhere. He did it.
So we ain't even gonna get to the red table yet. We trying to keep this going. We trying to keep this topic pushing because we got y'all here for a long time.
I mean, we're not gonna break
I don't
down
want to
the
get to the
red
red
table.
table yet. No, I said we didn't get there yet. We're gonna have to do this like the
Oh, okay, okay,
reconstruction. It's a build up because it's been
okay.
going on for a while. So all the news come out June 25th. August album drop. All of the backlash, all of the media, everybody storming in. Great cover for everything that's going on in times too. Black Lives Movement, everything that we
Hmm.
need to be worried about. Perfect
Yeah.
timing for the media to get behind this and really put this out there. But we came down on Jada.
You know it's global too. People in
Global.
continent is
Global.
talking
These the
about
black issues we want to talk about. But I'm
even
happy.
on
Y'all lovely hope Ashley said we gonna move this shit to the back.
the
This is just fun and games, man, because
right. If
at least we
anybody
got something to
don't
laugh at. Why did everybody come at Jada? Let's talk about black women, black
woo.
relationships, Will Smith, Hollywood. Why we come down on Jada?
So I'm put it like this. I mostly see men coming at Jada. You got some women that are like, I'm not biased, so I'm going to give her I'm going to say my piece about what I think was not appropriate with the situation, but I'm not biased though. What I
Mm.
mostly see, and it's totally different from Dragon, what I see is the black men of Twitter dragging the heck out of Jada. And what I do know, because we have plenty of um, situations with the roles of the sexes reversed, that they don't be dragging the men like that, regardless of the situation that like the side female was in. They're just straight up like, she's a home wrecker, blah blah blah. No responsibility for the male. Me, I'm unbiased. The married person is ultimately responsible. Um, like I don't place blame on the outside party. What I will say in this situation is with Jada is that um, I don't think that it was appropriate for her to engage with him, not because of his age. Um, I mean, she was separated, so and that they did what they wanted. They look, they got their own marriage.
Ooh, that brings
I
another
can't
question I got
speak.
for you.
What they want to do in their marriage is what they want to do, but him coming for help and then it resulting in an entanglement, which is the accurate definition is that complex um, relationship. Um, that was the thing that was unsettling with me. Not any of the other stuff. Um, because, like I said, we see that all the time. Um, if this was reversed, but this is totally different. And so I can't get down with that because, especially, I feel as a woman, like we're supposed to be able to think, you know, with the head, um, have some restraint and all of it. We don't. So it's just a little bit surprising, but at the same time, we don't know the exact timeline. We don't know if he, got better. It appeared he was better, through that. But at the same time, this is my thing, right?
I'm ready for it.
I'm not going to drag this out. She did the tweet and say, I'm bringing myself to the table for healing. But I don't understand what healing can be done if you don't take responsibility for the fact that, in so many words, you took advantage of a particular situation. Or I really kind of don't want to say take advantage, but you allowed a situation happen and you didn't take any responsibility for it. I didn't see any responsibility taken at the red table. I saw a lot of passive, nonverbal communication and movements between both Will and Jada.
Okay, we're getting to the red table. Let me ask one question before we get to the red table. Why did August come out and say, I got Will's approval, as if it was a sanctioned relationship, and they pretty much come out and shut it down? It wasn't brought up any ties to how the relationship happened and whatsoever, the things about it, the entanglements of the entanglement, they didn't talk about. So
No.
why? So was August lying, or did Will sanction this relationship? What went? Why?
Jada pretty much said she could see how he
She
could
said it's,
possibly think that,
yeah.
but no.
It was her
At the same
body,
time,
her call. Will has nothing to do with it.
I didn't see any nonverbals at that time that showed that they were lying. Because this is the thing, these are actors and an actress. We
Yeah,
are actor and
that
actress,
was
so you got to
acting.
remember that.
So let me
But
break that down because I don't understand. Like the way she was saying it, she was like, I can do bad all by myself. That's where she was coming from. But if she was like that, August would have never said anything close to, I went to Will to get permission. Like, that's too much smoke for there to be no fire.
I can't comment on it because I didn't. I can't comment on it because I'm an unbiased person. So it's
So let's move to the red table.
it's literally like he, even the way he kind of said it was not fluid when he did say it. He was like trying. He was like he just
So
came out. It,
this
it
happened.
wasn't.
Go ahead.
Mhm.
I'm just adding on to what you're about to say.
Go ahead. No,
This
go ahead.
happened 4 years ago.
Uh-huh.
The issues of it were resolved. The lives have been moved on. I mean, August is making music.
Not
It's coming out.
apparently not for him. So
No, because when you make music, you express your stuff. Artists make their music, and it helps them. And this is
yeah,
4 years ago.
yeah.
He's
That's why
promoting,
I said
producing
she
his music.
messed up.
August is good.
If
He
she got a
still
stupid
feels
ass
it,
nigga,
but this man is out here making millions. Get the hell out of here. You're taking it and using it. Dang it,
yeah.
I forgot what I was about to say with August. No. I want to talk about Will, because we're talking about acting.
Mm-hmm.
Poor puppet dog. Poor puppet dog.
And
Will, we
don't
done
pour
seen.
him.
Y'all remember when
Don't
Will?
pour
Y'all
him
remember when
because
Will was crying on the episode of Fresh Prince when his dad left him?
I
That
know
boy,
what you're talking
that boy
about.
been great at that
Why
boy
why
been
you
great at
don't
that
want
puppet
me?
dog. He
Why you
been
don't
great
want
at
me,
that
Jada?
puppet dog face since 22. Why was he on there so sad that this is an issue that happened 5 years ago and they done moved over? And a week later,
Because he
the
got to
news.
sit there and hear it again. But
So you think
don't
he wasn't
don't
playing?
let that face fool you. These people have to market their brand
Mm-hmm.
because You remember when he said,
Great look for Dak.
"I'm gonna get you back," and
Yes.
she made a deliberate statement with a deliberate hand gesture that said, "No, I think you've already done that. You got me back." And he said, and this is when Will got uncomfortable, and when she did that, he laughed. He looked at the camera. He didn't want that
He
to
said,
come
Puff
out.
Daddy here?
He was like, and then he looked over, and you could see him make eye contact with the camera. He was not ready for that. Secondly, when he reiterated, I'm gonna get you back. He rolled his sleeve up like that's a gesture of yeah, okay. Like
It's
he's
on.
saying, oh yeah, but he's really saying like yeah, okay, I'm getting you back.
Which was
So I look at nonverbals. Hmm.
my original question was, we ganged on Jada.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of the same thing. The hidden things that we don't want to realize or come to visualization on is that the reason that this happened is a problem that we have to address in our communities, in Africa, and in how we go forward raising our families of the diaspora. Because I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying that issues aren't going to creep into relationships. There's
Mm-hmm.
always going to be adultery. There's always going to be fornication. There's always going to be things that slip into the marriage
Mm-hmm.
because it's one of the most sacred unities. So it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be attacked. But when we're looking at it, one, we cannot idolize these people.
No.
Two, we have to learn and reprocess what we see. And
Mm-hmm.
three, we have to ask the final question of why it is and how I'm going to apply it to my life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. People need to use this as a learning lesson, specifically for the first one, which
Can we talk
is
about black men?
idolizing.
Oh, okay, we're
I
going to talk
no
about
idolizing.
idolatry. That's even better.
Yeah, idolatry. Like the we need to stop this. Like with these celebrities, like it makes no sense. I mean,
A celebrity that
looking
we
at them.
idolize made songs about the couple that he idolized that we're talking about right now. What J. Cole said, I want that Will and that Jada love.
Hmm.
No,
Yeah,
you don't.
it's that prominent. We need to stop doing that because it gives people a false sense of what a marriage is when we know in the real world that's not what marriage is, and yours could probably be a whole lot better than theirs is. You don't know, but these are actors and actresses, and they're carrying a brand. So it's not even the same. And then you can't. And then when these celebrities and they have situations like this, you can't get all in your feelings about it. It's not your marriage, like um. So, but at the same time, I guess the takeaways are that um, you know, you can get like if you really want to, if you're determined, they seem to be determined. The jury's still out on that because the way Black Twitter is set up, I don't know. But if you're
So
determined, you can get through anything. Um,
that was the third point I wanted to get to. Make it through anything.
yeah. I mean
So
that's
we spent so much time on this. We ain't gonna
it's
we gonna save our versus conversation for next week. How you feel about that?
that's fine with me.
Because I want to talk about the black man in the house, and black love, and the role that
Hmm.
we were in. This entire diaspora show, we talked about what happened to the black people, black families, black relationships, all of that, and
Hmm.
it's not in place.
Yeah.
And we are going to talk about the gossip behind Will Smith.
Hmm.
Gossip, same fact. I don't know the man. All I did was watch all his work.
Yeah.
Lots of affiliations with Puff Daddy, Hollywood, celebrity and things that we push onto those people who are in those career fields.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of immoral sexuality, if we just want to say the big word.
Well, I don't know that because I know about his side chicks. I don't. I've heard through the grapevine, but I have more conclusive evidence to the females. So let's go with that
So
one.
you think he's more of a can't keep his hands off of.
I don't know. I
So
don't
what
know
I want to
that.
talk about, I got two things. I'm
I
happy you
mean,
said you. I don't know because it made me
he
think of a couple things.
they
Let me
both
say,
admitted it.
yeah, let me say a
So.
couple things. So in in Hollywood, you could there's movies coming out about it now about how hard it is for black people to have any success in Hollywood. So every time we're looking at these idols that have the success, you have
Uh-huh.
to ask what.
How did they get there? What all they had to
We don't have to
do to
talk
get
about
there?
all the things because I talked about what I think it could have
Hmm.
been. You talk about what it could. That's not the important thing.
Yeah.
But what I want to talk about is what he went through and the dynamics of his life now, his family. His son
Hmm.
called another man of his age dad. That's my daddy.
What?
Tyler the creator.
Oh
Another
wow.
rapper, Jaden, called, hey, I know what Tyler the creator is and what music he talks about, and he is pretty much a version of an anti Christ, I guess you can say. And what he talks
Mm.
about in his music is worship of evil things, and now your son is calling this man daddy.
Wow.
Your wife is now sleeping with your son's friend that was
Hmm.
brought into the house. And I forgot
Yeah.
what Willow did to her dad. But every single thing has backfired on Will.
Yeah.
And
This is causing a lot of confusion for the family. Like there's a lot of confusion going on.
my glasses don't want crooked because this is crooked. What we gonna do, man? This is
I
Will's
don't know
life completely broken, and we're
cause,
asking why.
because we want to advocate for black families to stay together, like because this generation wants to break up over every little thing, but
Which
at
is
the
my
same
third point,
time,
but we can close off.
we're not trying to perpetuate unhealthy environments though either. So that's something to consider as well, because like if it's unhealthy, then for the family unit, because I'm a firm believer in, like, yeah, you know, you two individuals have a type of contract, but then at the same time, once you bring kids into the picture, like now the contract expands to the entire family and
And
to
we know who those colored kids belong to, right?
hmm
We know who these
yep,
colored folks on this American continent belong to. And
yeah.
how we raise them and how we treat him, even if you read the Bible, although you have to bring lots of documents, it says Jesus love the kids, y'all.
Mm-hmm. Sure enough. And oh man, this
My third,
goes
so
into,
so
I
we don't
really
we
want
don't
to
we
talk
don't
about stuff,
yeah
but
we don't
I
have
will
to get
go
into the
into it.
gossip. I love that we're not getting into the gossip. We just stating the facts and
Yeah,
how you look at it and how
yeah.
you should look at it. And the
Because
last thing I want to look at, go ahead.
yeah, because I said we're not gonna sit here and just like talk about like all these opinions and stuff like that. We're really trying to tie this back to like what's like best for like us.
How we're supposed
Um
to receive it and process it. Where we
like
going with this?
what's best for us, like as a community, like what should we be taking in, you know, because we can learn from good and bad, but like we need to be able to process these things. And this is the thing, is that we're slammed and bombarded by this type of imagery and this, that, and the third all day long, in and out. And so we need to be better at processing what we see, how we see it, how we take it in, how we apply it to our life, all of that. All of that needs to be taken into consideration, because we need to start building healthy mindsets for wealthy mindsets. Like,
Healthy mindsets for wealthy mindsets. And my point three, how we should perceive it. And as much jokes, as much memes, as much as we want to talk about it, as much as I hope you're going to teach the people on who they got their relationship status quo from, because I
Mm-hmm.
forget their
Yeah.
names. But
Ozzy Davis
we
and
we
Ruby D.
there y'all go. Y'all look it up. Y'all research. We live together. We die together. Bad marriage for life. I'm currently a married man, and I do know how hard the institution is because it's not meant to be easy. It's something that unites you with God,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
and it's completely attacked. But no matter what, although there's this corrupted and dismantled, clearly we ride together, we die together. Bad marriage for life. There's so many posts on social media like, why aren't there any good men? Why aren't there any good women? Why isn't marriage just like how it used to be for our folks? Why is it this? Why is it that? Hey, whoever y'all
And
out there who want to get married, guess what it's gonna come down to? You're gonna get tired of your spouse, you're gonna hate your
yeah,
spouse. It's about we ride
because
together, we die together, we're being married for
the
life.
thing is people have misconstrued good marriage, good men, and they've misinterpreted that and for perfect.
Yeah,
Like I
I'm
said, with
happy
this
you said it.
generation, like they're expecting perfection from man, and like you're not getting it. And marriage is a lot of compromise and a lot of learning. You're going to be forever learning
Ashley,
your partner, like, and
yes.
if for anyone that doesn't understand that, because you can actually, some of the things like Will has said about marriage is true. He said how, and this is what they learned from Ruby D and Ozzy Davis. They were in their 17th year of marriage, so they went to Ozzy Davis and Ruby D to say, how did y'all make it through? Ozzy Davis and Ruby D were married for 50 years, and they did have a bout of an open marriage period. And after the open marriage, they decided to come back to just, leaving the open marriage alone, coming back into their, well, actually, they transitioned into a life partnership. So that is where Jada and Will get that verbiage from, life partnership. But anyways, when they were having this conversation, um, Ruby asked Jada, she said, how long have you been married? And Jada said 17 years. And Ruby D said, oh shit, you don't even know him yet.
Mm.
And so for
Mm.
anyone that
Mm.
doesn't understand, and so Will, during this, I believe this break, he said, he's learning a lot about Jit. They're learning a lot about each other. And so many people are like on their neck, like, what do you mean? Like, y'all been married? Like, I think they've been married like 20 years or so at this point. I'll forget their exact thing because I'm not all
We
up in
don't
it
even
like
know
that.
him yet, man.
But,
Deep.
people started like dragging them, like, what do you mean? But the thing is that I ask you something. Are you the same person today that you were yesterday?
Nope.
And why is that?
Because I went through things.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Exactly.
grown. I've outgrown my mistakes. I've outgrown my childish behaviors. You continue
Mm-hmm.
to develop as a man or a woman. You
Exactly.
grow to who you're supposed to be.
If you're actually growing. Um, Now, if you're stunted, that's a different discussion. But if you're actually growing
Black
and
people
your
in America.
partner is growing too, you're going to be forever learning that person. Forever.
So we are going to end this.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about systematic bullshit since we were in the Atlantic slave trade. Shout out to Portugal. Thank you for killing all of the tribe's parents and just
Don't.
leaving. Oh yeah, whatever.
Wait, time out.
So let me.
Time out, though. Because I that's why. Because I knew you was not going to be able to let them go. We
I'm
got to
sorry,
say that
y'all.
for another time, man. We got to
Yes,
say
we
that
got
for
so much. So all right,
because I
black
know you want
culture.
to miss out.
Black culture. We are consistently told to look at each other a specific way. We learn that from everything we talk about to the point where we get to the crisis that we are in from the second Reconstruction, the backlash, how we look at black people, how we look at black men, how we look at black women, the welfare system, prison system, all of that dictated to us looking at, first of all, black people ain't shit. Black women saying my man ain't shit. Black men saying no. Ruby D said you've been married for 20 years. You don't even know him yet. You have to understand the kingdom. Shout out to the royals who are in black men and black women, especially in America. It is not black men ain't shit. It is not black women ain't shit. It is a beautiful thing that's when us and we come together. It's impeccable. So it's funny that this message comes out and we want to all look at it in the negative, ignorant, horrible light that we all do. Attacking Jada. Will, he's a great actor. He took the narrative and ran with it. But everything else, all this other stuff, it's all systematic, man. And
we're gonna
have to do an episode on how y'all supposed to look at love next.
For real. Well, you're gonna have to school. You're gonna have to school because I got limited experience, you know, and yeah, you'll probably have to get a panel of married people.
I got the panel of me, myself, and I got lots of stories to share.
Right?
We can break this down.
Right.
It'd be good.
But we as a people, we have a heavy burden to bear, and I hate that at the very least in all this burden, like the ones of us that have not felt trapped, that are not, you know, completely psychologically damaged, that we can't support each other in the manner that we need to. I mean, even with the whole Jada and Will situation, like just the division that it's caused amongst people that doesn't even involve. I hate to see it. So yeah, we need to treat each other better. I know it's hard with the burden that we carry, but I want people to, you know, marinate on that.
We can joke and laugh about the life partnership, but Will, after all of this, I don't know if it's true. I mean, what we see on social media, we see. But Will took Jada out on an all-expensive, paid, whatever she won, whatever they won with their millions and billions. And I'm just like, wow. Treating each other better, no matter what. I mean, as much dirt as we look at them in their relationship, man, I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
That life partnership is different, y'all. Maybe we should think about having life partnerships with our common brothers and sisters in the diaspora.
For real. Definitely.
Matter of fact, as we end this episode, we got this life partnership together. Me and Ashley gonna bring you this daily diaspora and give y'all these lectures. Send the people
for real.
Out here.
This was a lecture for real.
2 hours, 30 minutes, y'all.
Oh my goodness.
Give your last words. I'm turning this live stream off.
And I'm good. I got that off my chest. I needed to, cause
we'll see y'all next week.
All right.
Oh my gosh.